Just to say, I mean, one of the things that has come through that we've talked about with AI is that all of a sudden designers might have a role as a curator. And I'm kind of a curator of form right here. Like I'm looking for opportunities. I have no idea. This one, maybe there's something here. I don't know. I'm looking for opportunities. I could see this. I mean, nothing else. I just see this form and I'm like, that could be an interesting grill. But I don't think I want to go with something quite that fluid. Let's see. So this is form. I could probably work in something weird here, maybe a wire base that takes on a shape like that. I'm not sure. So let me see. Let me find something else. I want to get somewhere. Furniture, that could probably inspire me. You want to draw that next summer? The red and blue high chair. You know that. Hey, just this. So here's something that I see. Just kind of the fact that there's a kind of triangular cross section in here. I think I could use that for a base. Maybe we'll look at it in just a minute. Yeah, I'm not really seeing much. The other thing we want you to do this week, we started with the Sanford Hall sketch a couple of weeks ago. The other thing we want you to do this week is I want you to sketch this. We're going to do 2 perspective views. And one of them I want you to look kind of down on that perspective view. So at 3-point perspective. So we want you to do 3-point perspective. And these grills probably are going to be below your eye level, so you're going to be looking down on them. And then the main thing there, like we in particular point out that we want you really looking down on one of them, and so you're going to have some significant foreshortening going in the Z direction, the downward direction. So I'm just going to kind of start there today. And then we'll jump into some exploratory sketches. So in particular, and we've specified we'd like for you to develop, you know, a few thumbnails of how you want your sketch layout to be, and I'm actually just going to start there. So I'm going to pretend like I want to do a grill that's somewhat cylindrical, and I'm looking at the layout of my page. I guess it's a little bit thinner than that. I'm looking at the layout of my page, and what I want to do is I want to figure out how I want these 2 perspective views to relate to one another. What's kind of awkward about my, you know what, it might be better if I do my page like this. Let's see. You know what, I'm gonna do my layout in this portrait orientation because my grill that I'm thinking about right now is gonna be kind of cylindrical, and it's more vertical than other things. So I'm just thinking about that 3-point perspective. I'm going to draw my cylindrical grill here. Since it's below my eye level, my 3-point perspective will move towards a point, a third vanishing point below my object. So there's very minimal convergence taking place here for this grill. Here's the lid of that grill. One of the other things that I just want to impress upon you, and I see this more in the exploratory sketches, I'm trying to remember where I saw a lot of it, is that if you're going to draw a cylindrical object, you know that most of the shape of this thing is a revolve. This is a very simple one. Then establish a 2 or 3-point perspective. So establish where your vanishing lines are. If I was going to put a knob on here, don't put the knob just straight out to the side or right here in the front. Put it off somewhere over in this direction so that it's easier to read the sketch. And to do that, you want to establish your perspective. So I'm going to say the knob and the handle will be off in this direction. If I have just kind of, this is a gas grill, and I've just got this simple little knob right here, then it's going to go off in that direction. And then if I've got a hinge, or if I wanted to show kind of a hinge point, I could put that right here. Or if I wanted a shelf, and that's kind of what I'm thinking about right now, if I wanted a shelf that just comes off in this direction, I don't want it to go straight off to the left or the right. I want it to come off in perspective. And so I'm just going to have kind of this rectangular shelf that comes off my grill in that direction. Then I'm going to give it a little chamfered top up here. And then I like this whole cantilever detail, so I'm going to take a little bit of meat out of the side and let that roll around. So I'm thinking about a grill, but I'm also talking about drawing in perspective. So here's my shelf. Now I want another view. So we want two views on this layout. And the other one of these views in particular, we want it as if you're standing. Let's just say this is the grill, as if you're standing really close and standing over this grill. So you're heightening, you're exaggerating the frequent perspective, and you're getting a lot of foreshortening with this with the vertical lines that show up here. So this is like, imagine how far, if this grill is 4 feet tall, 3.5, 4 feet tall, I'm standing a pretty good distance away from it, right? Can y'all see that? I mean, you can imagine that. So compare that to this, and just for the sake of maybe adding a dynamic element to my sketch, I'm gonna put my vertical, I'm gonna put this at a little bit of an angle. And since I'm looking close or very much down on this object, my ellipse for the top of this is going to be what? Really fat, right? Because I'm looking at it. There's nothing circular here. There's a circle right here. The further I get away from it, that ellipse starts to close down. The closer I get to it, I'm getting right on top of it. It's almost a circle. This is my minor axis. I'm just drawing this intentionally at an angle just to make this. And then now, this distance, which didn't foreshorten a whole lot when I was far away from this object, is really going to foreshorten a lot now. And so the overall height of my grill is going to be something like this. In fact, I think it needs, with as much foreshortening I've got in there, I think it needs to get even a little bit higher, right? So now I'm standing right on top of that grill. Does everybody see that? I feel like I only have about 5 people's eyes looking. So just to clarify, just to restate what we've talked about, look at how much foreshortened distance has happened when you walk up on top of this grill. That this distance between the center of the top ellipse and the bottom of ellipse all of a sudden has shrunk significantly, right? And then I just have to work through accordingly. And then one of the reasons why I wanted to draw it this way is that I want this, I'm going to establish my perspective. That's going to come out at this angle, is that I really want to show, and these are vertical lines, right? So my third vanishing point on this is just below my page. Is that I really want to kind of show that this shelf, because my thing's cylindrical, I want to draw that shelf and explain that it can rotate around my grill, and so I'll put some arrows in here. But we want you to pay attention to the layout, right? We're getting to the point at the end of the semester, just so you know, this is again the last of kind of the regular weekly assignments that we have. We'll launch the final next week, and you'll have 2 weeks to work on it. But we're asking for more exploratory sketches, and we're asking for a little bit more as far as what the deliverable is concerned. But this week, really concentrate on your layout. And so I'm even thinking about that layout, and I'm going to put a vignette back in here. It's going to be just straight up square, and it's just going to carry all the way around my 2 grill sketches, and I'll just give it a little bit of a background. Oops, going too far. All right, so there's that for just a very simplistic grill design. Two views, two perspective views, and then a nice layout. And notice I really intentionally, the reason why I decided I wanted this vertical or in this portrait orientation is that I wanted to play up. I wanted to have some overlap just to make it a visually interesting composition. I wanted just a little bit of overlap on my two views of the grill. But to reiterate that and just to look at kind of cubes, right? So if I draw a cube in 3-point perspective, I can have like subtle 3-point perspective, right? This is fairly subtle. And just imagine, let's just say this is a, I don't know, 2-foot by 2-foot block, 3-foot by 3-foot cube that's over there. I'm pretty far away from it. But again, what we want you to do on the other one, and this, you just have to think about this a little bit more and setting this perspective up. I'm going to draw that first vertical line of the cube, that leading edge, right here. But I'm almost going to draw a square for the top of my cube. I mean, it's a diamond, but it's getting pretty close to square. And then I'm going to exaggerate the 3rd-point perspective, right? Everybody see that? So there's just a little bit of an exaggeration there to make it a little bit more dynamic. And I'm just fixing it. So we want one view that's kind of like this, and we want another view that's kind of like that, right? So one that we're somewhat used to, and then another one that's somewhat dramatic, as if you're cooking, right? As if you're walking up or you're checking the temperature gauge on the top. That's what we want in your final rendering this week. Okay, so let's do some grill exploration. Here's where I was with some things this morning. You know, right here I was thinking about this whole cylindrical thing with maybe an elliptical shelf that could rotate around the object. You can see I drew it a few times. There's this, maybe I could go with a tulip base. I'm just going to do a few sketches. Here's the thought. This is very similar to the grill that we did in the summer, just kind of with different proportions and maybe exaggerating different details. Here's something where maybe I could get a little bit more organic with, I don't know how they'd manufacture this, right? But I could get maybe a little bit more organic with the body, and it's not this whole cantilevered thing. I'm going to draw in some section views just to illustrate kind of what's happening with that. Where I left off is I'm kind of thinking that something like this might be interesting, where you've got this visually thin element that comes around and you got some shelves that jut out. I'm actually thinking that this is very similar to the 4 boards, 5 books right here maybe, where you got some layering that's happening. So let's start with that one. Let me just start with a simple version of that to begin with. Your exploratory sketches don't necessarily need to be in 3-point perspective, but it might be a good way to practice, right? So just kind of angling that out, even though it's vertical. So here's what I want. I want kind of this visual presence of a very thin structure or architecture. So I'm going to go with something that's maybe only about an inch wide. Maybe this could be built with 1-inch tubing that's then skinned with sheet metal. And I'm going to put a big old radius right here, and maybe a big old radius down here. Maybe one that wraps around like that. And then I'm just going to give this a fairly simple lid. Don't know what I'm doing with the handle yet. Make sure, you know, again, this isn't like a third-year studio design exercise, but you know, stuff like making sure that people won't kill themselves on a grill is probably a good idea. That they don't burn their hands, that there's some, you know, that you're addressing some of the concerns that probably are universal on grills. Let's see, can I mimic some of the styling? I mean, this is a little bit boring. I don't think it's quite there yet, but can I mimic some of that styling for the handle? So let's do a handle that's basically that same shape. Just a little sheet metal rod or plastic rod that's coming around. Oh, let's see, I'll have a firebox under here, and I talked about maybe having the shelves like disappearing up under that element. Maybe they're the same thickness. And so if what's weird about this is it's hard to tell where exactly those shelves are. But if I give this like a contour line or draw a section line in, then I can define how far it is below that object, right? So that right there just helps me define what's happening with the form. And then I could carry that over to the other side. You know, here's where I will tell you this. If I'm doing this, like you've seen how I've constructed this. There's not a whole lot of construction that's taken place. But if I was doing my final rendering for this class, this might be where I actually would use something like the diagonal method to find out this distance and that distance to make sure that those shelves are the same size. So all the things that we used, that we learned this summer, you can certainly still apply them. You know what? This needs a logo. And maybe that whole thing's cut out. I don't know. That's pretty boring. What do y'all think? What could I take away from this? What could I do as a next evolution of this design that might make it interesting? Add a fryer to a side.
Put like a lower shelf to a higher shelf. Put it on wheels.
Oh, it does need knobs. I like. Put a microwave on it. Okay, see, you know what? I like this thought. I mean, I like where y'all are headed. You're like, okay, well, tell me about the context and the setting. Am I tailgating? Is it Saturday? Is there a game on? All right, so yeah, I do need, this is a gas grill, so I need at least I need a knob. Maybe I could have a thermos, what do you call it? It's not a thermometer up here. And you know what? There would probably be, that's my tank. All right, so, you know, I don't know, I'll tell you where I was thinking that this might go. I was thinking that this angle might be interesting. But then, how does, our grate is going to be flat, so how does that angle work? I don't know if I want that angle, but I'll try it. Maybe I'll go a little bit smaller thumbnail here.
Hey, yo. Put it back. I've never been inside a 7-Eleven.
I haven't seen it, so all that.
No, I haven't seen
We're getting one in August. Yeah. Quick trip? Is that what you said?
We're gonna butt these. She could have said
Who's my dad?
Oh yeah.
All right, so what do y'all think of the second iteration?
Is that a group?
We got the, just form-wise, I got the angle, right? No?
Wait, so
I don't have a fryer yet. This is a fryer.
That's cooler.
I guess,
My food would roll.
well, these shelves are flat. Hey, come on. The shelves are flat. They're small. Here's my firebox. I don't have a handle on here. We'll just put a handle over to the side. I don't know. In my mind's eye, I thought that one of these was going to be pretty good. I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to do something else with this. I do like a little bit of what's happening in there. But maybe I don't like the proportions so much. Is there anything redeemable about this?
Could you maybe add like a foot pedal to open the second one?
Foot pedal. Man, I love the idea of a foot pedal.
Like a trash can?
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting.
Thank you.
I had the grill up, and I was like,
Caroline recognizes.
Luke, I'm gonna be disappointed if I don't see a foot pedal in yours.
It'll be like my irons. I'll put so many foot pedals on
What
my
about-
But I'm gonna need I need to see some
built-in iron board.
I need to see some exploratory sketches on the linkage that would make that happen.
that's so clutch.
Just make your grill something outside.
Huh. All right. Oh, I got it.
There's a water wheel in it that like there's a hamster rest down on the pedal. It's like severed you.
Whoa. All right. So now I'm gonna go with like almost like one of those tabletop grill, like it's integrated. The tabletop is integrated in, and the grill is only on like half of it. So I'm still thinking about this kind of clean design. You know, maybe it's the lid. Maybe I need to do something with the lid. People might recognize this as a grill a little quicker. So still got that form to some degree. Still got this sideways U shape. What could I do with the front? Come on, Luke. Need some more ideas.
You could do a cooler. You could do a cooler that pulls out, so that like you're sitting there, the cooler pulls out next to you underneath, and then like in the back, the propane rests on top of like a shelf, and that shelf is the lid to the cooler.
Whoa.
Jared, hear me out. Mini fridge.
I'm ready. Mini fridge.
I'm not.
Cup holders.
Very top.
All right, I'm going mini fridge. Mini fridge is gonna need, now all of a sudden, what do I need for a mini fridge?
Refrigeration unit.
Yeah, power supply.
What kind of insulation if it's right next to the shelf?
It could be propane power. You can propane power fridge.
Yeah. Put a keg.
How does that work, Rusty?
Has a, I don't know. It has a, I mean, it's like a propane generator.
I got you.
Got a little compressor, heat exchange.
So I do need, if I've got like a mini fridge in here, I do need some volume. So that just steps back. This comes over. I don't know. I'm not. I mean, this actually would be pretty nice, huh? I'm thinking we got an innovative concept here. Maybe we need to take this one a little bit further, right? All right. I still need a better handle. I remember seeing a grill like this many years ago where the handle just came out to the side, and I thought it was fairly clever. And I pitched this to Charbroil a number of times, and they never went with it. But yeah, it keeps it out of the way.
What if we did like an electric lift? So you hit a button and it lifts the whole
I like your kicks or
pedal.
foot pedal better. Okay, I'm sticking with something in here. I actually like that better. I don't know. Let me try one additional. One of these. Bless you.
Thank you. Sorry, guys. One more girl.
Bless you. Rusty, what can I do with this lid? I like the body. I like that architecture.
I think maybe you could make it look more like the body of the grill.
So here's, I mean, this isn't, you know, we've talked about details, right? I'm gonna go to studio for a second. The edge treatment and details on things like the blob, right? Where do I put a soft edge? Should I put it here? Should I put it here as it wraps around? Should I try and even duplicate some of this thinness and maybe wrap something back in? Like all those little things that we've been talking about. You know, it doesn't always seem readily apparent how that applies to product design, but that's the decision, right? So proportion. I think what I want to do is I want to have a sharp edge right here. I'm going to add the angle, but I'm going to leave the fillet, similar fillet as I've got right here on that edge. Trying to carry that dialogue, that visual dialogue across my grill. And maybe it's not quite as thick, but I could do a similar thing where I've got kind of an offset, and that exposes my firebox right here.
Could just be an impression too, or like
A little, it could just be stamped in.
yeah. Once you get three, you get repetition.
I just made a Bob Ross happy accident, and that is, you know, just in drawing this straight line. Well, what if that's a curve, right?
My daughter was Bob Ross for Halloween.
No way.
That's so.
And the other daughter was Happy Little Cloud.
A happy cloud.
Yeah. And it was their idea later on last week.
Okay, so here, let's step back down. Actually, I think the shelves are kind of cool. Maybe they could use an angle. Make them look like wings. I don't know. That's getting, what I've challenged myself with over the last 2 or 3 years is the Dieter Rams approach to good design is not too much design. I sometimes I used to fall into that category, and you can see it in these. Fall into that category of just doing too much, trying to build too much form in. Like that. That's too much. So give me Dieter Rams. Let's see, we're getting there, right? They're gonna call this Cinderella's coffin. Y'all know what that's referring to? Yeah. I think it's Cinderella's coffin. The record player, the famous Dieter Rams record player. Turntable. So again, this is just sketch lesson, right? If I put a section line or contour line there, I can show how far it is away from that by continuing that contour line up and over, right? Just showing that reveal in there shows that there's a gap, and I can define how far that is away. Let's see, so this probably would have a little bit of a fire. I'd see some of that firebox back in there. If this was a propane, you know, the tank is gonna be somewhere in here. Okay. I'm gonna darken this sketch up so it counts as a sketch. Okay, any other thoughts? I'm fielding exploration.
So how would you, like, if you didn't want to do a propane one and you wanted to just like a ground-fed gas line, how'd you do that?
You'd probably put like a you could show that with like one of the with a small gas coupling right in here, and then you could just annotate to it, or you could show a line coming in, right? I mean, the gas lines that I had, I think that the gas lines are pretty thin. They're probably only about 1/4 of an inch. But you could just say that. You get away. It's a little bit easier to do that. Okay, let's go back to this cylindrical one. You know what? I'm gonna go with the who did the tulip base? The table with the big tulip base. Rusty. Kind of like this. It's actually kind of thinner. Arrow Saarinen? Is that a Saarinen thing?
We did the wound chair, the postulated tulip.
So like a base like that, just a cylindrical one. I don't know what that's gonna do, but let's find out. So I'm gonna start with a minor axis, big ellipse on the bottom, big ellipse on the top. That axis actually helps me quite a bit with how to mirror this tulip base. Rusty, are you cooking?
I'm drawing over. Yeah, I got an idea over here. It's really, really sketchy. It was inspired by one of your earlier images, too.
Okay, so I'm going to establish my perspective. That way, when I do anything else to this, let's see. I'm just going to give it a larger kind of. Maybe this is a little bit of a work surface, and then I can define. Let's just go super geometric and simple. Here's this perspective, so I'm defining this is just like a half dome, which ultimately is a circle. And then you got to figure out how to do the handle. Grills, what I've always found, and I can't tell you how many grills I've drawn in my life, finding kind of a complementary or integrated handle is one of the challenges. So you could probably spend, 3 or 4 or 5 of your 30 exploratory sketches just looking at handles. Shoot, now that I remember, we were paid an entire contract just to design handles for an existing grill. Tons of sketches. All right, which way do I want this to face? Let's see. I don't like this. Oh, we'll do the same thing. We'll do that same kind of, this one will have, it'll be a weird intersection right here. We'll have 2 kind of cylinders coming off. And intersecting with that front lid. That's stupid too. All right, I'm going back to my R2-D2 trash can design. I'm going simple here. So I want this one, let's see. Notice, we spent so much time talking about like ellipses and perspective and chords, right? Notice just how I started these couple of sketches. What am I thinking about? If you go back to summer and what you learned in the summer, what am I thinking about as I start these 2 sketches? What's that?
Setting up your perspective grid.
Yeah, I'm setting up the perspective grid, but what am I thinking about that leads me to draw these 2 ellipses the way that I just drew them? Yeah, I'm probably the horizon is, I'll tell you this, probably 90% of the sketches that I draw, the horizon line is above my object. So I don't actually think about that often, but yeah, that comes into play. This is getting closer to the horizon, so it's getting thinner, right? I haven't really established perspective. This grill doesn't require me to do too much of like chord checking. All I know is that I want that ellipse to kind of open up a little bit towards the base, and I want it to close up as it gets closer to my eye level. And at some point, I will establish a perspective off of this. But right now, that's enough to get going. I don't have to start with a cube. I don't have to start with that perspective grid. I'm just kind of starting here. And so what I want to think about now, A, is my proportion. I think this is a little small, a little short. Ooh, no, let's do that. You know what? Here's your 5 lines on a square surface exercise. What kind of proportion do I want with some lines that break up this cylinder? I kind of want this to be down here. I'm gonna keep, let's make this just a chamfer. And then I want to put a single knob on this thing, and I want that knob to be somewhere in here. So one way that I could do that is I could say, all right, well, if I want to draw that knob right there, I'm going to draw a line up to where it meets this ellipse, and I'm going to draw that. Now I've established my right vanishing point. And then I can come through there and hit that point tangent, or I can draw a chord, and now I've established the left vanishing point. But that just helps me draw this object, and I want it to be fairly far over. You know, let's pull this knob out away from that surface just a little bit, and let's add a chamfered kind of intersection with that surface. Now here's where I feel like my ellipses are getting thinner than they need to be. And so I'm kind of giving this, it's almost as a mental check as to where the chord is. There's not really enough room for me to draw a chord in there. So I'm just kind of giving it a mental check and going through the motions and ghosting a chord in to see if it's in the right spot, or see if it's the right ellipse degree. I'm going to put just a small lip. I'm imagining this is like a stamped sheet metal component. There's my chamfer. I want to, if I'm thinking about now how much convergence there is, that's what that ellipse tells me. So now I actually have to start thinking a little bit more about my perspective setup and what's going on, because what I want to do is I want to take some of that like whole cantilevered, the cantilevered feel of the earlier grills that we've drawn and work it into this, to where there's just a reveal. That's where I'm going to put my tank, and it's just open on the back of this object. And what it does is it takes it away from being just a pure cylinder, which is probably nice, right? Just the straight up cylinder was a little bit boring. And then maybe what I could do is I could put a tank gauge. So if I put that tank on a little weighted element in the back, and I can have this little guy coming through, and as I spend the energy, this will lift up, and when that lifts up to the top, all of a sudden now I know I need to refill my tank. Or when it gets close. That's the key to a grill. It's not knowing when the tank's empty, it's knowing when the tank's almost empty. Oh, now I gotta give this a handle. Foot pedal. Let's see, how could I make a cool foot pedal detail? Let's do kind of an elliptical opening down here. So I'm going to cut that off at an angle. Come around. So this is the reveal for that tank. And then this rolls back around, and my foot pedal is somewhere in here. And here again, I can use the power of the contour or section line to define what's happening in that area. Even though I got a lot of ink down in there, and it's not drawn perfectly accurate, I can define what's happening. Okay. I think mission accomplished as far as simplicity is concerned. What are some other cool details maybe that I could work into this same design? A flamethrower.
It's like a defense mechanism.
It doesn't have a shelf.
It's a flame lightsaber.
sketch that comes out like the bogey things, like it swings out. To put your stuff.
Like a Bobby thing?
The thing we drew this summer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It swings out.
Yeah, draw that.
I hate propane tanks, that's like always something you're trying to hide. So I was thinking, could you have a custom flat mat propane tank that you show off? And all the connectors to it are like brass connectors that are shaped and bent really well and have these nice fittings. This is super like rough exploratory sketch, but have more things to add to it, knobs and details and that kind of stuff.
It's just, you just spike this. This is my favorite detail. You spike it into the ground. So it can also double as a weapon in the zombie apocalypse. Okay, Bobby shelf that rotates out.
It like hides inside, and then you can
swing out.
Yeah, the only challenge. I mean, if we start to think about that, right? So, well, I mean, I'm with you. So we got a hinge right here.
I got a portable charger. You need it?
No, I have one too. Well, you know what? We're almost done, but I think this is a great opportunity, because what we'd need to think about would be if we have something that rotates out, right? So the bobby was square, and the bobby didn't have anything that would interfere with those drawers, right? So there wasn't like tubing or gas lines going from a tank up into a firebox. That would be the challenge, and we would want to think about, well, what would the shape of the drawers be? Maybe the shape of that is something like that, and then it starts to rotate out. But I think what's cool about, and why I'm really glad that you said that, is that this is that opportunity to, I mean, this is what an exploratory sketch is about, right? Okay, I've got an idea. I want to try and put a hinge right here, but I also have some issues with that, and so I've got to try and figure out, well, now I've got my gas line running through here. I can put it over here. Maybe I can even extend that shelf around like so. And you know what? Really all I need probably, if I'm thinking about cooking, maybe I even have a platter that I sell this with, and I can rotate this thing out and I can set that platter down and it fits perfectly. And so instead of this actually being a shelf, maybe it's just a support for a shelf. And I could, if I had room, I'd put kind of that thing right over in here. Let's see, I'm rotating it out this way. So this, no, the opening is facing away, right? So if this is the front, then this part is going to end up right here, right? So I've made my ellipses. I should have referenced my earlier ellipses. I made my ellipses too fat right in here, but it's going to open up in this direction. It's worth a fun little exploration, right? Okay, so that's what I got for you today. It's 12. We'll let you out 15 minutes early if Rusty doesn't have any objections. The main thing, hey, I think this is what we've got. Exploration. You really need to define what cooking appliance you're doing, right? So, are you doing a gas grill, charcoal, wood pellet, pizza oven, whatever it may be? I want you to define that, and I want you to make sure that your details work its way in. 30 exploratory sketches, and 4 of them look at the layout, and make sure that one of your 2 perspective views of your grill, you're standing right next to it, kind of looking down on it, right? Exaggerating that 3-point perspective.
Any shoes? Any more shoes? Thank you.